In the high-stakes arena of modern naval warfare, a £3 billion British pound masterpiece currently sits in the North Atlantic, looking increasingly like a vulnerable target. The HMS Prince of Wales, a pinnacle of British engineering, finds itself in an ironic strategic nightmare where its immense power is rendered potentially useless by a swat of low-cost threats. This is the paradox of the modern aircraft carrier. While it is designed to project global influence against massive conventional fleets, leading global defense analysts argue that it remains dangerously exposed to an unexpected swarm of tiny adversaries. The critical gap is not in the ship size or its radar reach, but in the sheer economic mismatch of modern defense. How can a vessel designed to command the seas remain defenseless against cheap technology that costs less than a common household appliance? The reality is that the HMS Prince of Wales lacks the layered defense required to survive a mass saturation attack by low-cost, unmanned aerial vehicles. This vulnerability exposes the entire Royal Navy to a strategic humiliation that would force military planners to rethink the future of naval assets entirely. On paper, their only tactical salvation would be the rapid integration of directed energy systems that have yet to see full-scale deployment in harsh maritime environments. Without these advanced solutions, the most powerful ship in the United Kingdom could become a sitting duck in a conflict that costs pennies to start, but millions to defend against. The question remains whether this is a temporary gap in capabilities or a sign that the era of the massive supercarrier is facing an existential decline. Before we go on, you believe these massive warships are still essential for national defense, or are they becoming too fragile for today's battlefield? And tell me where you are watching from. Subscribe to the channel to join the discussion as we uncover the hidden realities of global defense. The reality of the current naval crisis is that the most sophisticated radar suites on the planet are being challenged by the most primitive threats imaginable. On the HMS Prince of Wales, the primary defense layers consist of the Sea Scepter missile system and the Phalanx Zeus guns. These systems are masterful at tracking and neutralizing supersonic anti-ship missiles or high-altitude aerial threats. They represent the peak of modern engineering and have been built to withstand the most intense maritime environments. However, these defensive layers were envisioned for a different era of warfare, where the combatants relied on expensive projectiles to land a strike. Today, the strategic landscape has shifted towards saturation attacks using low-cost, unmanned aerial vehicles. This creates an impossible economic equation for the Royal Navy. Each Sea Scepter missile costs roughly £1 million British to manufacture and launch. When a swarm of 50 tiny drones, each worth less than $2,000, approaches the ship, the defensive system finds itself in a state of terminal inefficiency. The vessel could potentially deplete its entire stockpile of expensive missiles in minutes, while failing to stop the swarming targets from encroaching upon its flight deck. This is the ultimate strategic paradox, where a multi-billion-pound fortress becomes effectively useless because it is simply too sophisticated to fight a low-tech opponent. Experts observe that the ship is technically advanced, yet fundamentally exposed in environments like the littoral zones of the North Atlantic or the narrow straits of the Middle East. The radar systems are so sensitive that they may struggle to differentiate between a massive incoming threat and a cloud of buzzing drones. Relying on traditional point defense guns like the Phalanx creates another gap because these systems have limited ammunition capacities. Once those supplies are exhausted, the ship is left completely defenseless against any follow-up strike. This harsh reality boggles the mind because it highlights how a nation with superior military technology can be held hostage by the sheer volume of cheap adversarial equipment. The Royal Navy has identified that traditional kinetic defenses cannot be the sole answer to the saturating threats of the future. This is exactly where the DragonFire laser directed energy weapon becomes the only logical salvation for ships like the HMS Prince of Wales. While the media often portrays directed energy as a distant science fiction concept, the urgency of the current naval environment has fast-tracked its development. The core brilliance of the DragonFire system lies in its revolutionary economics. Instead of firing a £1 million British missile to intercept a target, the laser uses pure electricity to engage and neutralize threats at the speed of light. This translates to an operational cost of less than £10 per shot. By integrating this technology, the ship effectively gains an unlimited magazine of ammunition. As long as the vessel has power, the DragonFire system remains ready to engage incoming swarms without the risk of exhausting its magazine. This capability transforms the ship from a vulnerable target into a near-impenetrable fortress that can handle dozens of simultaneous threats with precision and efficiency. The strategic impact of this solution cannot be overstated. By shifting the defensive burden away from expensive interceptor missiles, the Royal Navy would finally resolve the fiscal insanity of shooting down low-cost drones with high-cost munitions. It represents the only technical pathway to maintain a permanent presence in dangerous waters without relying on the unsustainable supply chains of conventional weaponry. Should this technology be successfully hardened against the corrosive effects of salt spray and the constant motion of the open sea, it will effectively neutralize the asymmetry that currently threatens the British fleet. The deployment of DragonFire would not just be an incremental upgrade, it would be a fundamental shift in how the nation protects its most valuable maritime assets against the rising tide of cheap, autonomous weaponry that is currently rewriting the rules of naval defense across the globe. Despite the immense promise of directed energy technology, the path to full integration remains fraught with significant obstacles. The Royal Navy currently faces a race against time as global competitors continue to refine their low-cost saturation tactics. While the development of DragonFire represents a beacon of hope, the reality of defense acquisition means that such systems will not be ready for widespread deployment on the HMS Prince of Wales for several years to come. This creates a dangerous window of vulnerability. If the United Kingdom fails to accelerate the hardened testing protocols for these lasers or neglects to find immediate interim solutions, the consequences for their maritime influence could be profound. The paradox remains that the nation is currently caught in a cycle of needing next-generation protection, while still relying on systems that were designed for the last century. There is a deep division among strategic experts regarding this trajectory. Some argue that this pivot to futuristic energy weapons is the only viable path to reclaim tactical dominance and secure the future of the fleet. Others contend that this fixation on unproven technology is a monumental miscalculation that leaves the nation exposed and defenseless in the short term. They believe that resources should have been diverted toward mass-producing existing defensive platforms rather than gambling on a singular technological fix. As we look ahead to the next 12 months, the situation in strategic maritime corridors will likely intensify. Whether this pursuit of DragonFire becomes the smartest survival move in British naval history or their greatest strategic error remains to be seen. It is a gamble that pits the brilliance of innovation against the harsh, cold reality of the battlefield. We are witnessing the evolution of defense in real time, and the lessons learned here will echo throughout the global defense community for decades. Was this move to prioritize futuristic energy weapons a genius survival strategy or the biggest strategic mistake in British naval history? Let me know what you think in the comments section below.